Good evening and welcome to the June 3rd, 2026 Special Hybrid Planning Commission meeting. I am Chair Thompson. Tonight's Hybrid Planning Commission meeting is being brought to you by Zoom. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Commissioner Hughes,
Here.
Chair Thompson,
Here.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Here.
and Commissioner Neese.
Here.
Thank you.
The Planning Commission meets in person and utilizes the Zoom platform for remote participation. I will do my best to recognize commissioners in the order in which hands are raised. After being recognized, you may then ask your question. Our first item of business is public appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to the commission about issues of concern, except items requiring a public hearing, any quasi-judicial matters, or campaign-related matters. Staff, is there anyone who has signed up for public appearances as of 4 p.m. today who wishes to address the commission?
Chair, we do have 5 individuals that have signed up to speak in person, but I believe those are all related to our public hearing and not for the appearances portion.
Okay. We'll reserve that testimony then for the public hearing. The first item of special business is to review and consider approving the May 27, 2026 special meeting minutes. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion by Commissioner Perez and a second by Vice Chair Gibson to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on this item? Staff, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Deputy Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. The second item of business is Agenda Bill PCB 26-07. Staff will provide some background on the comprehensive plan update, station subarea plan, and implementing development code amendments. Welcome, Adam Zach, Principal Planner.
Thank you. I have some slides here. Let me share my screen. Okay, so tonight we will be, I'll provide a briefing on the background of the comprehensive plan update. This is amendments to comprehensive plan, a proposed new sub-area plan, station area sub-area plan, and the implementing development code amendments. This is to prepare you for the public hearing later during the meeting here. The objective tonight, after receiving testimony, is to resolve the planning commissioner's comments that have been submitted on the draft comprehensive plan, the station sub-area plan, and the code amendments. And then the public hearing will be continued to next week, June 10th, where you can complete your recommendation to the city council. Tonight, I'll begin by going through some background and give you the timeline, get everybody caught up. And then we'll turn it over for the public testimony. And then after that, I have some slides prepared to walk you through the proposed process to resolve those comments that have been submitted. To start our background section, I wanted to highlight where background documents can be found. This is part of a process that has been ongoing since January of this year. And so there's been a ton of material that we'll be touching on tonight, but the actual documents are all posted on the project's Let's Talk page. And then also in all of our Planning Commission agenda bills, there's a background section that includes all of the meetings scheduled. I'm going to power through the extra noise here. all of the meetings that we've held on this matter, and then also the corresponding documents for those meetings. So you'll see in the background section, it's a little small on the screen here, but the background section of all of our agenda bills lays out where you can find additional documents. I wanted to start tonight by looking at the Growth Management Act, or going over the Growth Management Act. This is really central to this project. The Growth Management Act is a state law that was adopted in 1990, and it requires cities and counties in the state of Washington, or most cities and counties, to adopt comprehensive plans. And in those comprehensive plans are the city's statement of goals and policies of how it will address growth and manage growth in the coming years. The GMA requires that cities update or review, and if necessary, update their comprehensive plans every 10 years. Mercer Island completed its last periodic review and update of its comprehensive plan in November of 2024. And those locally adopted comprehensive plans must comply with the Growth Management Act and can be appealed to the Growth Management Hearings Board to determine if those GMA, those Growth Management Act requirements have been met. And so we'll get into this in the next slide. The periodic review that was adopted in 2024 was appealed to the Growth Management Hearings Board. But we'll get onto that in a couple of slides here. The GMA works by requiring a 20-year comprehensive plan that looks at growth and plans for growth in that 20-year time period. The state law requires cities to have goals and policies around maintaining infrastructure, and capital facilities and utilities to keep pace with that projected growth in that 20-year time period. The GMA also requires cities to maintain adequate land capacity to accommodate that forecasted growth. So we get what's called a housing growth target and an employment growth target. This is a number of housing units and a number of jobs that the comprehensive plan needs to provide development capacity to accommodate. And then in addition to that, the GMA requires the comprehensive plan to designate areas for future land uses. That's where that capacity piece comes in, and then also plan for that infrastructure to grow as the needs change and the population increases through the planning period. And I already mentioned the forecasted growth is a housing target and a growth target, and that'll be key when we get a little further into the presentation here. Let's see here. I actually think I covered most of this in the last slide, so I'll move ahead. So the comprehensive plan is, as I mentioned earlier, it's a statement of goals and policies and actions that the city plans to take over a 20-year time period. The current comprehensive plan in effect now plans for the 20-year period between 2024 and 2044. And the key thing with the comprehensive plan is that those goals and policies get implemented through development regulations, the capital investments and decisions around capital investments that are made, and the projects and programs that the city undertakes. So the goals and policies filter down into our regulations, decisions about capital improvements like roads and other capital facilities, and then projects and programs the city undertakes. The 2024 comprehensive plan update that was adopted in November of 2024 was appealed to the Growth Management Hearings Board in 2025. And the appeal claimed that the comprehensive plan update did not go far enough to address affordable housing. And that really relates to some of the recent updates to the Growth Management Act that were adopted in the years prior to 2024. Those comprehensive plan appeals on that basis are heard by the Growth Management Hearings Board, or the GMHB. And the Growth Management Hearings Board is a state board that determines whether a comprehensive plan complies with the GMA. So these are, it's a state level board. The hearings board order, and this is summarizing about, I think it's 150 pages of decision, but it's summarizing a lot of information here. Essentially found that the city needed to revisit its land capacity analysis and determine if it provides enough land capacity to accommodate its forecasted growth. It found that the city needed to make more of what are called adequate provisions. So these are incentives and mandatory provisions that require or incent the development of affordable housing. The city needed to adopt a station sub-area plan, and the city needed to establish anti-displacement measures. So these are measures that will offset the displacement risk that comes along with increasing development capacity or making zoning changes. And then within that, the city needs to comply with the hearings board order by July 31st of this year. In the table here that's on the screen here, we have the right-hand column gives a very, very, very high level summary of how we're addressing each of those in the drafts before the Planning Commission today. For the land capacity issue from the hearings board decision, the city is making zoning changes in the town center and the adjacent multifamily zones. The town center, the existing town center will, the height in that zone will increase from what is currently a mixture of 7, 5, 4, and 3-story maximum building height to a flat 8-story maximum building height within the town center. And then those adjacent multifamily zones will go to a 6-story maximum. So we're adding development capacity, or the proposed zoning changes would add development capacity in the town center and the adjacent multifamily zones. It's worth pointing out that though our station sub-area plan designates a larger area as part of the station sub-area, the only changes to development regulations at this time are in the town center and adjacent multifamily zones. We'll talk later about the phase 2 of that project, but that's not something that the Planning Commission is considering a recommendation for tonight, specifically. The adequate provisions piece, we have proposed inclusionary zoning in that TC8A and TC8B and TCMF zones. So those are the zones where we're adding the development capacity. There's a proposal, or we're proposing to make those an inclusionary zones where a certain amount of affordable housing is required for any new development. There's also, for the adequate provisions, there's a proposed fee in lieu of affordable housing. This is a program whereby developers can pay a fee rather than construct the affordable housing. And then that fee can then feed into additional housing programs or housing development, but the city would control that revenue for affordable housing. And then there's also some minor changes for affordable housing throughout the development code. So there's some adjustments to the parking standards and some other things to incentivize the development, to incentivize affordable housing and make those adequate provisions. Or I should say, those minor changes are to address barriers to affordable housing in the development code. Then the station sub-area plan, that action is pretty straightforward. There's a sub-area plan proposed that would be a part of the comprehensive plan, and it would outline goals and policies to guide to establish the planning for the area around the light rail station. Again, I'll say it probably 5 or 10 more times tonight. The zoning changes in that station sub-area plan are only in the town center and adjacent multifamily zones. The larger station sub-area does not have proposed zoning changes currently. That would be part of phase 2, which would take place in the future. And we'll talk about that in more detail soon. For anti-displacement measures, there's a separate ordinance. The city council held a hearing on ordinance number 26C07 last night and will hold a second reading of that proposed ordinance on June 16th. And the anti-displacement measures in that ordinance are not before the Planning Commission here today. That's a matter with the city council. So those tenant protections are not part of the ordinance before the Planning Commission, or the raft of amendments before the Planning Commission today. And then finally, on that July 31st deadline, provided we continue the public hearing to next week and complete the Planning Commission's recommendation on June 10th, the project will remain on track to meet that deadline set by the hearings board. So there's a ton of work associated with this. Again, all of the documents associated with each of these 5 items here are provided on the project's Let's Talk page. Some of the key presentations, if you want to dig in more into the hearings board decision and GMA, we provided a more in-depth briefing on January 16th to the City Council with Agenda Bill 6838. And then the March 25th Planning Commission briefing, we got into that in more detail. So if you're looking for more information about Growth Management Act and the Hearings Board decision, I would point you to those briefings. You'll be very familiar with my voice by the end of those. They were pretty lengthy. So we created this block diagram here to kind of highlight our strategy here. There's really 3 main components that we're looking at today. It's not reading great on the screen here, but there's the comprehensive plan, the station sub-area plan, and the implementing development regulations. The comprehensive plan is one block of amendments we'll talk about here in a moment. And then I'll walk you through the station sub-area plan block of amendments. And then both of those things create, both the comprehensive plan update and the station sub-area plan have goals and policies that need to be implemented. And so we have a raft of development regulations that would implement those policy changes. And that's the third block that we'll look at tonight. We'll provide an overview of tonight. Somehow I hit the wrong direction. There we go. So now we'll take a look at the comprehensive plan amendment that's before you today. So the comprehensive plan includes some changes to address the land capacity issue from the hearings board decision. It also includes some policy direction around the adequate provisions. You'd find that in the housing element of the comprehensive plan. And then there's also some concurrency measures, some amendments that are made or proposed to the transportation, utilities, and capital facilities elements. And those amendments are in place there to ensure that infrastructure keeps pace with the planned growth in the rest of the plan. So one of the things the GMA requires is that if you're making changes to your land use element, for instance, you have to make sure that your transportation element is using the same assumptions about growth. So we have some amendments to those elements to reflect those changes. The major changes in the comprehensive plan update are that we have updated some of the residential capacity tables to reflect those potential or the proposed upzones in the town center and the adjacent multifamily zones. This includes disaggregating the residential capacity by affordability level, which is one of the things that we were tasked with by the hearings board. So you can see kind of how that in the land use element there, there's a table that kind of provides some of that background information of how this zoning change addresses some of those affordable housing needs. The future land use map in the land use element was updated to reflect the changes in zoning. So the change in the town center and those adjacent multifamily zones are now reflected on the proposed land use map. There's a housing barriers analysis that was provided and summary table provided in the housing element to show how we're addressing potential barriers and what those resolving actions are. And then you'll also see there's quite a few goals and policies that have been struck from the land use element and some in the housing element, but those have actually been relocated to the station subarea plan. So any of the goals and policies that were in the existing land use element or housing element that dealt specifically with the town center zone have been relocated to that station subarea plan because the town center, the existing town center zone is now part of that station subarea. And then I already mentioned the consistency amendments to transportation, utilities, and capital facilities. We've briefed on each of these pieces individually at a number of meetings. I did want to highlight that at the May 6th meeting of the Planning Commission, we took a more in-depth look at the land use, housing, and economic development elements under PCB 2604. And then on May 27th, we briefed the Planning Commission on the transportation, utilities, and capital facilities elements. That's PCB 2606. And the slide deck will be posted on the meeting page for this. So if you need that link, you'll be able to access it there after the meeting. Moving now to the station subarea plan. This image here is the cover of the subarea plan. This is a plan specifically for the area around the light rail station, and it plans for it establishes goals and policies for that area. In the subarea plan, you'll find a description of the existing conditions in the station area and the vision statement for the station area taken from the existing town center subarea plan. You'll also find new goals and policies related to the station area, particularly this phasing idea that's in the subarea plan, where the work that we're completing now is part of phase 1. And then there's a larger phase 2 planning effort that will get underway after the adoption of the subarea plan, where the city will consider additional changes to address changes to the state law related to transit and planning near transit stations. And then the other key thing from the station subarea plan, rather, is that the establishment of the boundary of the station area. And again, that phase 2 implementation, that has a longer timeline to allow for additional public input on those other actions in the phase 2. So you'll find a lot of the new goals and policies in the station subarea really address how we'll go about that phase 2 to ensure that we get the public feedback needed on that larger phase 2 planning area. So the subarea plan is a set. I already mentioned that, actually. We already went through what the subarea was. Again, the city is adopting a station subarea plan because the hearings board found that we needed to, that was something that was required to comply with the Growth Management Act, is to plan for that area around the light rail station. And then there's the 2 phases of the plan, of the subarea plan, which the zoning changes that are before you tonight are the phase 1 or the extent of the phase 1 changes. And then the phase 2 zoning changes the city has given itself until 2029 to complete that phase 2. And we'll begin working on that project following this update to the comprehensive plan. A little more detail on the phasing. So we're amending during phase 1, the the town center zone will increase in its maximum building height to 8 stories, and those adjacent multifamily zones will go to a maximum building height of 6 stories. And that's to address the need for housing capacity. That first issue, one of the first issues that the hearings board identified. And then during phase 1, we're also migrating the goals and policies related to town center from the larger plan down to the sub-area plan to make it more specific to that area around the light rail station. Then in phase 2, this is where the community will be able to provide input on determining additional sub-districts within the sub-area if desired. And then the city can complete a more comprehensive visioning for the larger sub-area during phase 2. And then by the end of that phase 2 process, there will be a complete station area regulatory framework. So there will be we can have the zoning changes to implement that phase 2 work by the end of 2029. So there's that larger process in there. I largely went over this. I wanted to highlight that in phase 2 is really where we'll have a more protracted public engagement process because we're looking at zoning changes throughout a larger area. This will give members of the public the opportunity to weigh in throughout the process, again, leading up to that 2029 deadline. And part of that too will include some policy development, some further analysis as we're looking at the potential amendments during phase 2. We'll need to conduct some of the same analyses that we've done for phase 1, again, for that larger station area. And then we'll need to look at the necessary infrastructure investments for that larger station area, and then also some zoning changes and regulatory changes to implement those policies. But again, that's a much larger body of work, and the sub-area plan really plans for that phase 2 work to extend throughout the next 3 years until the end of 2029. So there's a lot more work to be done there in that phase 2 section. The map on the screen here shows the proposed station sub-area boundary. The entire area would be the entire area shaded in orange and blue would be the station sub-area. That's within the sub-area boundary. But again, the phase 1 area, which is the orange area, that's where all of the zoning changes are taking place. It's not in the larger station sub-area there. It's just in that phase 1 area, which is the existing town center zone and the adjacent multifamily zones. And then that additional phase 2 work over the next few years is what will take place to get to that larger station area plan for the blue area, the phase 2 area. The station area boundary here is based on a modified half-mile walkshed from the light rail station, which is part of one of the things that we need to do to comply with the state law. And then again, this modified station area boundary was approved by the city council on March 17th. So that's another one of those meetings that you can revisit if you want to find out more about the station area boundary. We gave a presentation on how we kind of arrived at this boundary and some of the assumptions that are made there. I think importantly, maybe the most important piece of that was that the station area boundary was modified to make sure that it didn't include any of the city's parks. So none of the Luther Burbank or Mercerdale parks, those were in the Aubrey Davis Park, were excluded from the station sub-area. The Planning Commission was briefed on May 6th with PCB 2604 on the station sub-area plan. And as I mentioned, we had several rounds of discussions with the council previously too. And so you can find that information in that background section of any of the PCBs. So finally, the third block of amendments before the Planning Commission tonight are the implementing development code amendments. These are the amendments to our zoning code that make the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan and the station subarea plan have effect when folks are applying for a development permit, so building permits and land use permits. These are amendments to Title 19 of the Mercer Island City Code. And again, to return to our model here, those larger blocks of the comprehensive plan amendment and the station subarea plan, those really feed into this implementing development code. So the development code is implementing those changes in the comprehensive plan and the subarea plan. The first kind of high-level or main amendment that is included in the implementing development code regulations or amendments is the proposed changes in zoning. So the maps on the right show, the one on the top shows the existing town center and adjacent multifamily zones. And then the map on the bottom is the proposed zoning map. So you can see that the town center boundary now includes those adjacent multifamily zones. It's worth pointing out too that here the zoning changes don't extend north of I-90. So those multifamily zones that are north of I-90 are not included in this zoning amendment. And again, the change here is that the existing town center zone will be an 8-story maximum, and those adjacent multifamily zones that will now be within town center, those will be a maximum building height of 6 stories. Another important piece of the development code amendments is the inclusionary zoning requirement. Inclusionary zoning is a type of zoning that requires a certain percentage of new dwelling units be affordable housing units within that new development. And this inclusionary zoning is one of the key adequate provisions included in this to address that hearings board decision. It's one of the things that's required by the state law to make those adequate provisions to comply with the GMA. The inclusionary zoning requirement will apply in that TC8A, TC8B, and the TCMF6 sub-areas of the town center. So those are the areas where we're adding the additional building height in town center and the adjacent multifamily zones. And the inclusionary requirement will be that 10% of new units must be affordable at 50% of the area median income. And you can see the full inclusionary requirement in Mercer Island City Code 1911-040 in Exhibit 3 of the staff report. So you can see those proposed changes there. Another adequate provision that's included in the proposed development code amendments is a fee in lieu of affordable housing program. And what this does is it allows developers to pay a fee rather than construct the required affordable housing units that are required under that the inclusionary zoning requirement. And the key thing with the fee in lieu is that the collected money from the fee can then be used to fund lower income dwelling units. So what we found as we were analyzing our development capacity is that the city needed to make adequate provisions to address the 0 to 30% AMI households, so extremely low income households. And this fee in lieu is one of the ways that the city can generate revenue to help pay for those affordable units to make those adequate provisions as required by the hearings board. The fee itself is actually set through the fee schedule, which is adopted by a city council resolution. So the Planning Commission will not be making a recommendation about the fee amount. rather just the development code amendments that are required to establish the fee in lieu option. So that fee is going to be in a separate matter that goes before the city council. And you can find these amendments in a new section in chapter 1906 of the city code, again, in exhibit 3 of the staff report. Next, I'm going to have a couple of slides about STEP housing. This is shelters, temporary, emergency, and permanent supportive housing. That's the acronym STEP. The recent changes in the state law have really set limits on how the cities can regulate the STEP housing. So we'll walk through some of the high-level ones. There's some more that aren't on the slide here, but first, the cities must allow sufficient development capacity under the Growth Management Act to accommodate the state and county assigned housing needs for emergency and permanent supportive housing. And that was a change that was adopted in 2021 with House Bill 1220. And that was one of the issues that was part of the hearings board decision or the hearings board appeal. And actually the hearings board found in our favor on that one. So, but the STEP housing, a recent bill, House Bill 2266 is going to be, which was adopted in March of this year, is going to relate to these last couple of bullets on the slide here. Under that bill, STEP housing can only be subject to the same development regulations that are generally applied to residential and lodging uses in the subject zone. So you'll see in the draft development code, there are some amendments to remove spacing requirements and other operational requirements that are over and above what would generally apply to residential development, and that's to comply with House Bill 2266. Another requirement is that the STEP housing must be subject to the same permit processes required for residential uses in the subject zone. And what this means is the city cannot require a conditional use permit for the STEP housing. And that comes from House Bill 2266 as well. And so you'll see in the draft, in changes proposed in Chapter 1915 of the City Code, and a couple other sections of the code, the conditional use permit requirement is proposed to be struck, and that's to comply with House Bill 2266. In addition, design review for STEP housing must be administrative. So the city cannot require a public hearing for land use permits or design review of this housing type. That comes from 2266 as well. The one thing from 2266 that the legislature allowed cities to continue to do is to require that the applicant certify compliance with some operational requirements between the time when the city issues the permit or approves the permit and before the certificate of occupancy is issued. And so you'll see in the draft, there are some new requirements that are being added that the applicant must certify compliance with during that window. So under the proposed draft amendments, social service transitional housing, which includes this permanent supportive housing, and special needs group housing, which includes emergency housing, will continue to be allowed throughout the city. These housing types have already been allowed in all zones since at least 2003. And you can see ordinance number 03C08 adopted those. But to be consistent with 2266 and some of the other state laws that apply here, the proposed amendments include removing a conditional use permit process, the spacing and operational requirements that were previously in place under that ordinance number 03C08. The proposed amendments do include those new requirements after approval prior to a certificate of occupancy, and we'll look at those on the next slide here. And then under the proposed amendments too, the design review will be limited to an administrative process, which you'll see in 1915-220 termed code official design review. So I wanted to highlight some of the new requirements that'll be in place for special needs group housing between the time that the permit is approved and prior to the issuing of a certificate of occupancy. The applicant will be required to provide the name and headquarters and address of the managing entity for the special needs group housing. They need to provide the city with a description of any other programs or licensees or certifications that are required to operate that special needs group housing. The applicant must notify residents within 500 feet of the proposed amendment, and that's a larger notice area than would apply to a standard permit notification. The applicant must conduct at least one public meeting. The public meeting, though, is not a pre-decision public hearing. It would be a public meeting to after the kind of between when the when the permit's been approved and when the certificate of occupancy is issued. So that public meeting doesn't necessarily influence the outcome of the permitting decision. The applicant must also designate at least one point of emergency contact. And then finally, provide the city with documentation of the operational policies and procedures for admissions and exit, how they'll handle complaints from occupants, and staffing and safety. So these are the things that we are allowed to still require for special needs group housing under that House Bill 2266. If you'd like to find out more about, particularly about the step housing piece, but then also a little more in depth about the development code amendments, the May 13th briefing with Planning Commission Bill 2605 is in a lot more detail than we went tonight. So you can find more information there. So that concludes my introductory presentation. That hopefully outlines the 3 blocks that we're asking for the Planning Commission to consider today. I have some additional slides after the public testimony, the public hearing portion of the meeting tonight, where we can walk through kind of the process to get to and resolve those Planning Commission comments on the 3 documents before you today. Do you have any questions before?
Where it begins and the outline. If you show the map.
Adam, do you want to repeat that question for the
The 3 blocks. that we're
record?
talking about, the 3 blocks that we're talking about, you can show us the map on the screen of the 3 blocks.
Yes, I can do that. Just typically, this is a chance for Planning Commission questions and comments. Then we can get to the testimony part, but I can do that now. So this is the proposed zoning change here. And I can't really zoom in, but again, the changes are really, as you're looking at the map here, the existing zoning map is the map at the top. And the existing town center is shown in orange, the map on the top. And then the MF zones are the kind of bright green adjacent zones. And so those under the proposed amendment, essentially the town center, those MF zones will be included in the town center. There is some parks and open space that is adjacent to that area, and that will not be included in the proposed zoning change. So it's the MF2, the MF2L zones, those will be added to the town center essentially. So that's the map on the bottom right here.
Show up a map of the area where there's a street and there are buildings, so we can see where this actually sits?
I don't have that map in the presentation, but I would direct you to the Planning Commission bill for this matter, which is that May 13th Planning Commission bill. It has more detailed maps in the document itself, that PCB 2605.
Are you done, Adam?
I am, yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Adam. The next portion of Agenda Bill 2607 is a public hearing to receive public comments on the comprehensive plan update, station subarea plan, and implementing development code amendments. Individuals wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item may do so in person or by Zoom. The public hearing is now open as of 6:45 p.m. Staff, is there anyone who has signed up for public comments who wishes to address the commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We actually have 5 individuals that have signed up to speak tonight. We have a Patrick Baker, who is first, Joanne Greff, Teresa Savage, David Klinghoffer, and Barbara Sternoff. So if Patrick is here and would like to go to the podium, we can start his portion of the public hearing. Patrick, are you present? Pardon me? And how about Joanne Greff? Same. All right. Thank you. The next one on my list is Teresa Savage. Did I pronounce that correctly? I'm sorry. Savage. Thank you.
I had no idea that it's.
Oh, sorry, is the mic on? Okay. Is there anything I have to do or is it? Okay. So it recently came to my attention that there were permanent supportive housing facilities being proposed for various places on the island. I have family members with severe mental illness, and I know, unfortunately, these particular types of facilities are designed for people who unfortunately often do have severe mental health problems. I did not realize that one of these places was around Northwood. There are 5 schools in that area. I'm a violin teacher. My studio is also there. This would be unconscionable to put in that area, given how many children are there. I also happen to live in the downtown area. One of the things that I love about Mercer Island is that I can walk safely at any time of the day or night. A facility in that area would make it fundamentally unsafe to do so. I think that there are better places to put such supportive housing. I would recommend the South End. I think there's lots of space there for such a facility. And I'm sure that I'm sure that whatever the needs are could be accommodated with a little bit more space down there. Sorry, I had written something up and a little bit too nervous. Thank you.
You're doing so well. You're doing so well.
I don't have anything else to add to that. Yeah. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next individual on our list is David Klinghoffer.
I'm echoing many of the sentiments that were just stated. The 178 planned units of permanent supportive housing, or PCH, on Mercer Island, likely on the north end where I live, would almost certainly include numbers of homeless people who are mentally ill, using substances like fentanyl or both. That is the purpose behind PSH, as I understand it. Anyone who would like to preview the results can visit the sidewalks around Pioneer Square in downtown Seattle as just one example. But watch where you walk. Note that the impact of PSH will not be felt to nearly the same degree on the much more affluent southern end of Mercer Island. Let's keep in mind that the state legislation that will do this to us, the Growth Management Act and HB 1220, above all, again, as I understand, received the votes of all three of our 41st legislative district lawmakers, Representatives Janice Zahn and Mylin Tai, and Senator Lisa Wellman. The former two will seek re-election this year, and the latter in 2028. Permanent supportive housing will change the nature of life on Mercer Island for many of us who struggle to afford to live here. Please consider that when you have the opportunity to vote for or against the lawmakers who supported this madness. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, our next speaker tonight is Barbara Sternoff.
Good evening. I'm a novice at this. I've never even attended a meeting before. I've lived on Mercer Island for 58 years. I, like most people, chose to live here because of the quality of our schools, for the safety we felt. When I first moved here, I never locked my doors. I had my windows open all night. I even kept the car keys in the car. I understand times have changed, but there are some things that are going on that don't seem fair to me. We are not, this is a one-size-all thing that has been imposed upon us. We are not Bellevue. We are not Kirkland. We are not Issaquah. We are an island with only so much land and so much space. My understanding, and I may be wrong because I get my information from the internet, which you can't always trust, that somehow Bellevue and Kirkland have negotiated deals with the state that Mercer Island no longer has the opportunity for the same thing. I have grave concerns about the permanent supportive housing program to allow people in there who are drug addicts, alcoholics, mentally ill. There's no testing to go in these places or stay in these places. I don't really think you're helping them, because we need to maybe rethink how we handle the homeless situation. The definition of stupidity is to continue to throw money at something that doesn't work. I have ideas on that as well. I'm just a person. And so I feel like I have no impact, but I felt I had to try. And I would like to be able, and I don't know how you stand up to the state, but it would be lovely if you could restore local authority. As I said, one size did not fit all. And I concur with the gentleman before me. The people that we've elected to represent us at the state level absolutely do not represent the people who live on Mercer Island.
That's all. Thank you.
That's it. There's no more. Okay. That concludes the public hearing.
Chair?
No.
If you could just wait one moment, please. We do have one individual that has requested to speak, and we feel it's important to hear from everyone that wants to speak. So we're going to go ahead and let her. If you would please, after you're finished, if you could give me your name so that I can add it to our list. Thank you. And I'll ask that you introduce yourself when you're up in front of the mic. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Diana Malakati. I wanted to just point out that I moved across the country from Florida 5 years ago as a single mom with no secondary income and worked really hard to afford my son to have a really good education. He started at Bright Horizons and he's in fourth grade going into fifth and he's thriving. I value what the city has to offer. I value the nest that I have built for my son and the community that we have built. With the recent changes and the rumor of what's going to happen, my son now fears living on the island. He asks me to close the doors, lock the doors, close his blind. Should we replace our window pane window next to our door? It's changing him. And I believe that should this plan be implemented, I believe that it will change and unravel the community and the face that we have and the closeness and the bond of our community. I foresee that we will probably not have the closeness and the structure that we so value. And I fear that a lot of people will move away and it will just be a city with no personality, and that's what we have here. So please consider or reconsider voting for this plan. Thank you.
Mr. Kevin Richards has asked to speak as well.
Hello, everybody. Kevin Richards is my name. I'm new to the area and I finally found my piece of paper which said about the meeting today. So I'm glad I showed up. My wife's out there with friends today on the island. So I am concerned with all the residents, what they've said. And as you vote, I hope you will take our considerations into effect. The thing that triggered me was the developers, something about the developers can pay their way to basically not do something. And I would obviously have a lot to read as I'm new. But like the lady said earlier, you know, throwing money at everything, you know, does not solve the problem. And this lady with her son who's grown up here, it's a beautiful place. That's why we moved here. We were on the East Coast. I'm so glad to be on the West Coast. But I don't want Mercer Island to turn into an Alcatraz where it's just out there and nobody can get to it because you dump people who don't fit into society. We have to help our people. This is what we're a very helpful, community-driven place here at Mercer Island. This is why we moved here. Let's try and keep it as a community-driven place, not for, you know, people that just have a lot of money and want to live behind locked gates. We're not South Africa. You know, let's really consider everybody's consideration in terms of taking care of people, those less fortunate, those that have mental illness or alcoholism. I mean, you just don't throw money and pills and pharmaceutical companies at this problem. You have to get together as a community and try and solve the problem together. Some people have more money than others. I understand that. But try and take care of people. And hopefully, if you're voting for this, please reconsider and, you know, carefully decide and think about what everybody here. My wife couldn't be here tonight, but she says the same thing. So I've clearly got a lot to read, but thank you very much for your time.
Chair, it's my understanding we have another individual that is requested to speak. I'll ask her to introduce herself and state her city of residence when she gets to the mic.
Hi there. My name is Adelina Caravai. I live here on Mercer Island. I moved here in 2010 as a single mother with my then young child. I love this community. Sorry, I have a tic tac in my mouth and I was not planning to speak. So I have an almost 20-year-old. I have a toddler and I'm pregnant. This community has meant a lot to me and my family. I also had worked as a realtor. I still have my license, but anyway, that's besides the point. What I want to say is that I'm not here to discriminate against anyone, but let's take a really hard look at what's going on with some of the surrounding areas that have this type of housing. For example, like the Plymouth housing, I'm sure you've heard of. There have been multiple incidents, as far as I saw, of police and just activity there. I'm not really privy as to what was going on exactly, but it doesn't seem like it's, how do you say it? Normal, you know? And just like the concern, I want to echo what they said, it hasn't worked. Giving people more resources to do drugs or to keep going with whatever addiction or whatever mental health. I mean, it's not helping, right? I mean, I'm not seeing any positive outcomes in Seattle, for example. So what are we doing as far as like looking at what's been working to solve these issues? Do we want to bring these people in whom I'm sure they do need help, but do we want somebody who is maybe mentally unstable or doing, hard drugs or whatever and have them around families and young children running around, you know? Like, do we really want that? I don't think so. I don't think I want that, At least they should be required to have some sort of treatment or something like that before they are living here in our community. That's I strongly recommend that you guys look at the track record that has been. Thank you.
Before we close the public hearing, is there anybody else that didn't sign up that wishes to speak? Okay, I'll need you to come up to the mic.
I'm Peggy Hammerly, and I've lived on the island this time for about 7 years. I grew up here, and I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Are you the next step as far as who takes our voice to the next level?
We are the planning commission, and what we do is we make a recommendation to the city council. And then the city council will review our recommendation, which is based heavily on the work that the staff has done and the council's already done over the last 6 months. And then they will hold a public hearing in July to determine whether to adopt these provisions here that we have very little discretion. These are mandatory. These are being forced on us from the state. So it's important to understand that. But there will be another step before the council, and it's the council who formally adopts these laws and bills.
Thank you, sir. Does what we're saying to you all make you move you to
Ms.
speak for us in the
Ms.
next level?
Ms. Hammerly, this is an opportunity for you to express your concerns. It's not intended to be a Q&A. If you'd like to speak with the commissioners after the meeting or staff, that's perfectly appropriate, but we need you to keep on topic about any comments you want to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you know where I stand, and I wanted to know if all of you live on the island.
I do not. I live in Capitol Hill.
And the rest of us do.
So 3 do.
Yeah.
4.
Four.
Thank you.
I grew up here, by the way.
Oh, good. So did I.
Is there anybody else? I think that concludes things.
That concludes the public hearing for this evening. The hearing is continued to the June 10th Special Planning Commission meeting at approximately 6 p.m., when the public will have another opportunity to speak either in person or via Zoom. Staff will now discuss procedures for the Planning Commission's review and recommended motions regarding the comprehensive plan update, station sub-area plan, and implementing development code amendments. Welcome again, Adam Zach, Principal Planner.
Thank you. I've got a couple more slides. Let me share my screen here. So I wanted to give the Planning Commission a quick overview of the proposed process to resolve the Planning Commissioner's comments that have been submitted on the 3 documents before you today. There were quite a few, so I think we have a pretty efficient way to get through resolving those comments. And then we can return next week at the continued public hearing on June 10th for you to make your final recommendation to the City Council. So there are some recommended motions in the Planning Commission bill in PCB 2607. First, it's the last bullet on the screen here, but recommended motion 1, we're actually recommending that we just hold that until June 10th. Again, that's the motion where you'll make your overall recommendation to the City Council. We're continuing the public hearing until June 10th, so we recommend holding that motion. You don't need to make that tonight. There is a recommended motion 2 in the staff report, and that would incorporate all of the non-substantive amendments from the agenda bill or from the 3 Planning Commission matrices at once. Those non-substantive amendments are things like simple clarification amendments or wordsmithing amendments that clarify the draft, but don't necessarily change the development code or policy language in the draft substantively. Then recommended motion 3 can address all of the substantive amendments. And you can either go through those substantive amendments and discuss individual ones if one of you would like to get into one of those substantive amendments, or I have a modified motion 3 that can make all of the substantive amendments with one action. So depending on how you want to do that, if you want to discuss some of those substantive, we can pull those out. Otherwise, we can do those in a block. It's also worth noting that there were some substantive amendments that were recommended against in the planning matrix or in the comment matrix. No action is required to address those not recommended. So unless the Planning Commission wants to discuss one of those further, you don't need to open those back up if you don't want. So we don't have a motion to address those proposed in the PCB because no action is required to address those. So the non-substantive comments, I won't go through each of the numbers here because this was the largest bucket by far. The vast majority of the proposed amendments in the comment matrix provided by for the comments provided by the Planning Commission fell into this category. I will note that we updated the matrix yesterday to incorporate Commissioner Perez's comments on the transportation, capital facilities, and utilities elements. And there are 4 non-substantive amendments from that raft of changes or that comment. And that's logs number 48, 50, 59, and 60. So again, these can all be addressed with the recommended motion 2, which would incorporate all of the amendments listed in the PCB into the draft with one fell swoop. I've got the language here. I just wanted to note too that we can no, actually, sorry, that's all the more we need on that recommended motion.
Commissioners, are there any questions? Well, I just want to make a comment for the commissioners as we go forward through this process. This came to us after months of work at the council, and just about every proposed amendment or comment that we have was fully debated at the council level. And by the end of it, they were pretty exhausted. I think many of them had the same concerns that all of you had. So when they sent this down to us and we have this time crunch, because it has to be done in July and adopted, and having presented bills on behalf of us, recommendations to the council before where we've made a lot of substantive changes, they're just not going to revisit it. They're exhausted. They're not going to reopen everything. If staff tells them they think it's substantive. So if we put in a lot of substantive amendments or we vote for them, I know exactly what they're going to do because I do the same thing. They're going to say we're exhausted. We think we have something that meets compliance. Let's have a motion to strike all the substantive motions that we put in there. So I've looked through the substantive motions, and my humble advice is to each council member, I think 5 substantive amendments would be too much. But my advice is choose, if you have one that you want to really feel passionately about and send up to the council, bring that one out and we'll discuss it. And I think among the 5 of us, if there's a couple or something, let's send those up there and say, these are the ones that we called. And I also think that it's going to be a lot easier for Adam if he goes forward and sits there and says, look, I'm not coming up here with 10 or 15 substantive amendments that we're, spend an hour on. These are a couple that they thought, and I'm willing to discuss, whether they are going to throw off the compliance or not. So that's my only comment on this. I guess at this point, we need to, do you want us to open up the blanket motion first, as you discussed?
I think for this process, we'll hold the blanket motion for June 10th. And then we can start with the non-substantive motion. I can bring that back up on the screen because I think that's the easiest one to knock out. And then we can go through the process you just proposed for the substantive amendments.
All right. Commissioner Hughes, it looked like you had something you wanted to say or a question.
Let's do the non-substantive.
Okay. Commissioners, may I have a motion to incorporate the non-substantive amendments listed in PBCB 2607 into the draft comprehensive plan, station subarea, and implementing development code amendments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Hughes and a second by Commissioner Perez to incorporate the non-substantive amendments listed in PCB 2607 into the comprehensive plan, station sub-area plan, and implementing development code amendments. Are there any comments? Yes, Commissioner.
Adam, had a few small edits to things, and as we talked earlier, I can email those to you. There were a couple small wording revisions that were maybe perceived as a little bit more than just wordsmithing. Do we want to go ahead and discuss those?
Or I think the preferred process, if you can send those to me and then we can bring them back at the June 10th public
Sure.
hearing.
Yeah, they're pretty minor, but just want to make sure we follow the right process.
Yeah, and the planning commission can consider that prior to making their final recommendation. That's one of the advantages of continuing the public hearing to the 10th.
I think everybody, if you ask them, they'd say that their non-substantive amendments are great. Do any of the commissioners have questions of other commissioners about their non-substantive amendments? Well, I just have a few, and I have these for Nazim. And these were your non-substantive amendments for the station sub-area plan. And these are, I just want to get some clarification because you proposed them. They said they're non-substantive. And these are 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And they point out the size of the town center, how much of the house, like 3.2% of total Mercer Island land, that over 50% of the citywide residential capacity exists here. I'm assuming that's correct, that you've looked at that.
I can't confirm the numbers offhand, but they're roughly in line.
Yeah, and I've always had problems by putting different information about population or anything because it changes so much. But what was your thinking on in including these amendments?
Chair Thompson, most of this were just typos that are being corrected. I wasn't generating any of the numbers.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So those were very minor.
Yeah, I understand that now. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. I don't have anything further. So if nobody else does, we can have a roll call. Yes? All right. Please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
Hi.
Thank you.
So the next raft of changes are the substantive comments, and there's actually two categories of substantive comments. I'll highlight for you. There's substantive comments, which are comprehensive plan comments 9, 19, and 33, sub-area plan comments 6 and 17, and development code amendment comment logs 18 and 11. These would change either the goals and policies of the comp plan or the station sub-area plan or the development regulations. But they wouldn't jeopardize the overall intent of the project, which is to comply with the hearings board decision and the state law. The second group of substantive comments have a staff recommended alternatives. And these again are not necessarily the staff recommendation is not necessarily to include these amendments, but simply if you will include them, we wanted to provide some alternative language to make it fit within the document a little better. And these are 17, 20, comp plan matrix comments 17, 20, 49, 52, and 57. 49, 52, and 57 are from Commissioner Perez's comments that were updated on the 2nd. And then station sub-area plan comment logs 2 and 4 and implementing, and there were no substantive comments with staff recommended alternatives for the implementing development code amendments. So depending on how the planning commission decides to go, we can either make these with a single motion, or if you'd like to go through and discuss some of these, we can pull those out for further discussion before making a motion. So I turn it over to you, Chair.
Does anybody, again, have any concerns or questions about these? Well, I guess they're substantive amendments. And I guess any comments whether they're really necessary. And the reason I say that is, do we want to save our powder for the council? by, I don't know how they're going to react if they're exhausted with this and we go up there and Adam says, look, these are substantive amendments. They changed the comprehensive plan that's hundreds of pages long. Would you like to go through that? But I don't think it would affect compliance. I just think that there might be a very good chance that they're going to get a motion and say, well, we don't want any of them. So that's just my comment. Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair. I want to separate some of these out because I don't completely agree with the staff analysis. Items 17 and 20, I'm happy to withdraw completely. I know we don't have to do any motion about that, but you can just strike them without further discussion.
Sorry, Commissioner Hughes, is that from the comp plan, the sub-area plan, or the implementing development regulations? It's a little Byzantine, I know, but.
I think 17 and 20 were comp plan.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I disagreed on number 19 as not being in scope. I think it addresses the adequate provisions. It's a potential form of revenue that doesn't require taxing citizens and puts their tax money that they're spending in other cities in our pockets. I do realize it is a controversial topic and possibly out of scope, so I'm willing to withdraw that as well if we think it's just not even going to be discussed. But I do think it's a tax revenue source that doesn't impact, it's a sales tax that people are very willing to pay. I think we're going to have a serious revenue problem meeting the state requirements. So that's why I put that in there. So I don't think it's not relevant. But I understand that it's controversial enough that we might want to drop it. And if that's the reason, and my fellow commissioners agree, this is not the time.
Well, I'll say this, like, for example, your number 18, log number 18, the development code update. Generally, I agree with you that if we're going to do this, I would like to see greater affordability mandates. But I also know that the council spent a lot of time on this, and for different reasons came up with the 10% at 50%.
That's not the one I was raising, though. I'm
Which one are
sorry,
you talking
Chair.
about?
I was talking about 17 and 20. I'm dropping. It's the
Okay,
number 19 is the allowing cannabis
oh,
as a allowed use of retail.
Just a small point of order, if I may, Chair, Commissioners. I want to make sure that when the different commissioners are speaking on something that we go through the entire round robin and give everyone an opportunity to speak before someone else speaks again, so that we've addressed questions as they come up.
Okay, I was just clarifying what
No,
the
you're
topic,
fine.
because that was off topic.
You
Okay,
you were up to speak, and I just wanted to make sure that before anybody responded, that we gave other individuals an opportunity to speak to.
All right, thank you.
To you.
do you have more, Commissioner Hughes?
I am interested in keeping, I think most of mine were non-substantive, but I am interested in keeping numbers 19, 23, and and 18. If I only get one, I'll take 18.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Neese? Do you have any comments on the substantive amendments that staff has identified? Don't, I guess, change the compliance element of this?
I am willing to drop, I think I had one about bike lanes. I'm willing to drop that. Commissioner accused number 18. My feeling were that some of those sizes were a little small for the units bedroom count. But I do think that maybe there's a balance in between.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I think just going back to process here, I think what you were proposing at the beginning was that we go through individual substantive items one by one instead of batching them. And so, or are we going to batch all of them together?
Staff's proposal was to batch all of them together, except if some commissioners don't want to vote yes on them, they could pull them out, or probably, as I'm going to vote, is not to approve any of them. So we can do it one of two ways.
Yeah, there's a couple of different routes that you can get from where we are now to a decision here. As always, there's a couple of routes to a decision. You can make all of the substantive amendments. You could also make none of them. Those are both pretty easy. It'd be a single motion to make all of them, and you could just not take any action on the other ones and decide not to make any of those amendments. Actually, I suppose for that action, we would need a motion to say we're not making any of the substantive amendments. The other option would be to agree by consensus that log numbers X, Y, and Z will be included. And then we can walk through log numbers X, Y, and Z, and then you can make a single motion to do X, Y, and Z as a group. So I think the process you had initiated here was that you were going to identify log numbers X, Y, and Z, and then those will be the amendments that you'll discuss and make a motion on. And then the others that are not included in X, Y, and Z would essentially die on the vine or just not be carried forward. And so,
Yeah.
and just for a recap, so that we're all on the same page, the only one that's been brought up so far to be brought into X, Y, and Z would be development code log number 18 from Commissioner Accuse. And Commissioner Accuse brought up development code logs 19 and 23 as well. You haven't reached consensus on either of those. We can, if you need to look at any of those, I have the matrix kind of ready to go, so I can pull that up and share it on the screen when we get there.
Would you do that?
yeah.
I think maybe the best way to do it is we'll just start with Commissioner Perez and say, Commissioner Perez, which of your substantive amendments that they are not recommending would you like to add to the bucket? And then we'll do that all the way down the road, and then we'll go back and go through them.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I appreciate that. So in the MICC 1911-02, or let's see, not 020, but in
Can you identify which of the matrix that you're talking about and which log number so that we can follow along?
PCB 2607, Exhibit 4C.
Is this development code?
It's comp plan.
Comp plan,
Okay.
okay.
No,
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, this is
4C is the
development
development code.
Thank you. It's the development code.
Okay, and
Thank
what's the
you.
log number?
And the log number is 29.
Okay. So you want that one in, right?
Yes. So what I've done, I had a significant number of adjustments and requests, but I'm willing to rescind. And if I'm going to talk and defend one, it will be number 29.
Okay, anything else? I see you have 30, 31. I mean, we can add them and
No, I think that with the resolution of 29, that will resolve 30 and 31.
okay. Commissioner Accuse, you have, what was it, development code 18?
18.
18, 19, and 23 were the three.
Okay, any other log numbers in any of the matrices? Okay, I have none. Commissioner Gibson,
I don't have any.
none. Commissioner Neese,
None.
none. Okay. I think that we should just start with Commissioner Perez. He's limited it down to one. So can you explain to the audience what this proposed amendment is and why you think it's important?
Yes, I would. I'd be happy to. So I hope that the audience, and again, if we're using the audience as the receivers of this information. So what we have here is we have a state mandate, and we are addressing that state mandate on direction from the city council to increase density associated with phase one, which is the downtown central. Is my microphone going in and out? Okay. So we're adding density in the downtown corridor in order to make sure that we have a probable path to be successful with the requirements associated with the state and not be in a legal position where the city of Mercer Island is in extraordinary fines associated with state mandates. So my proposition, or the log number 29, is strictly is making some, what I believe are some fairly minor, but I think substantially allowable changes to the requirements associated with 8-story buildings in downtown. So basically, item number 29 is at this particular point an exact carryover from the current codes where we had limitations of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 stories downtown. That limitation is such that we establish at the property line a 27-foot vertical height and then a 45-degree requirement associated with what's called a daylight plane, just to make sure that there is light on the sidewalks. That works in a 4-story complex or a 6-story complex, but a 27-foot front street presentation in an 8-story building with setbacks simply does not make sense. I've been here on Mercer Island for 16 years. I have 2 boys. I love this island. It's a phenomenal place to be. I live on the north end. I am not going to be, well, and I'm an architect, so I believe in building and creating new things. I'm not going to push solely for increased development, but at the same time, too, I'm not going to restrict that development if it's a mandate given to this particular commission. All I'm trying to do is kind of put in place planning commission and architectural interpretations of the way that we would look at how laws are interpreted and received on the architectural side. I just want to make sure that an 8-story building is possible. I believe that based on the legal the requirements that we have in the constrictions right now, there is no way to build the amount of density that a developer will need in order to have any chance at penciling out a development project. I believe with some fairly minor adjustments, we'd have the opportunity of creating more density at the street and maintaining the daylight corridor, but having to adjust it for twice the available height associated with the building. So I know that we have an extraordinary timeline. We have between now and next Wednesday to make an adjustment, and this is a fairly complicated thing. You know, we really, as a commission, had about 3 working days to put together some information associated with this. And again, it feels like my microphone's going in and out, but here's my proposal, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Nazim. Nazim is an architect. I'm going to propose to the chair, if I can do this. Back up, thank you. I'm going to propose to the chair that another commissioner and myself have the opportunity of producing some documentation in the next couple of days and then proposing it back to this commission with diagrams on June 10th. In order to see what is the best possible scenario given an extraordinarily compressed timeline. I was on the design commission. I've been on the planning commission here for a bit. What I want to be able to do is take a 3-month process and compress it down to a week. But I think that we can possibly do it and certainly be in a better position than what we are now. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that our city attorney has just turned on her screen and would like to speak, as does Principal Planner Zach.
Thank you.
Presenting the material on June 10th doesn't provide the public an opportunity to review it and comment at the continuation of the public hearing. And so you have a very short time period to put that out to the public so they have an opportunity to review.
Could you give me a
June 10th
timeline?
is too
please,
late.
Council?
June 10th is too late. It's usually something you have discussed tonight so that the public has an opportunity to consider it and then come back on the 10th and discuss it with you, comment on it.
Well, if I may, I can go ahead and propose or discuss what I've already proposed. Would that be?
Can I make a comment before you do?
Of course.
I just wanted to speak to the staff recommendation against the proposed amendment before we get too far afield here. So this specific issue was brought before the city council earlier in the process. We asked for city council direction on whether or not to adjust the daylight plane during this project. Because there is as you pointed out, there's a series there's a complexity to the development regulations.
Yeah.
That needs to be worked out over a series of meetings. And so the city council's direction to the planning commission to staff was to hold off on adjusting the daylight plane standards until phase 2 of the project. And so you'll see, and so that was the source of the staff recommendation against taking action on the daylight plane during this round of review. You'll see in the sub-area plan document, there's goals and policies directed at phase 2, addressing the design standards. And so before we got too far afield, I wanted to reiterate that the council has directed the planning commission to hold off on adjusting those design standards until phase 2.
Understood. May I quickly address?
Sure.
Okay, just really quickly, my fear is that if we wait between now and 2029, there will be no development of substance in the downtown area. And if that's the plan, and we're okay not meeting the state mandates and state requirements in phase 1, then I think we want to keep it the way it is. But if there's a opportunity or possibility to do some quick reconsideration, I would propose that we do that.
Commissioner Hughes.
I wanted to propose a motion to replace per Commissioner Perez's the 27 feet with 45 feet to address this issue, and the city council can take it or leave it, but I think we should put it out there because I agree that you're not going to get any development, which is the goal, if you keep that 27 foot in there. And I think that's a simple adjustment that they can accept or reject.
Commissioner Neese.
Sorry, before we go any further, Kim jumped on the screen. I think Kim might want to speak here.
I would appreciate either one of you sending me the material you have that when you're just flat out saying we will not get any development. I would really appreciate understanding where those statements come from. A lot of work has been put into these materials, and so I would really appreciate seeing yours.
Commissioner Neese.
It's fair.
I'd like to just have some clarity over what the code actually says. And I guess my pointed question is, once you get past 30 feet deep, do you still have to continue at 45 degrees or can you go straight up? Because I read it 2 different ways. And Commissioner Perez, I don't know how you read it.
In my read, that is indeed the way that it's set up. It's 30 feet from, again, to me, the code was not clear. I couldn't tell if it was 30 feet from the front face of the building or if it was 30 feet from the property line with a 15-foot setback or a 12-foot setback. So there was a lot of confusion in the professional read, and I think that we need to resolve that. But I think we can do that in a single sentence.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start with what does it say? And then perhaps a question for Kim. These, whatever the code says was apparently used in the Nexus study, which I assume it's a little beyond my experience, but I assume that they use that to generate some calculation of how much development could be created within the TC zone. And so whatever they used, would we be able to change it and still comply with, regulations beyond just looking at this daylight plane?
We would have to go through and determine what CAI used and what their interpretation is, and if it's different than yours. And I'm not able to do that right now.
This is my comment on this. I believe that you're correct. You will be correct. But there's just no way that we have the information. I have the information. I'm not an architect. It hasn't been vetted with these new building heights. We don't have to wait till 2029, and I don't think they will. But the council specifically said, don't go there. We probably will have to go there, not in 2029, but earlier. But I just don't want to do this now. I mean, I read this and I look at it and I just don't have the information, and I don't want to go to the council and tell them we changed daylight planing when you said don't do daylight planing until we could come back with some time, agenda packet, somebody that says this is what we can do. Anthony, you can, submit the information to the planning department and sit there and say, here's my expertise. You're going to have to bring it back to us based on your comments, but that would be the time to do it. This is just about getting what they think is correct for compliance. So, I'm going to vote no now and yes later.
Just quick point of order. I put a motion on the floor and we had discussion before there was an opportunity to second or not second. So you think
Is there a motion? on the
Yeah,
floor?
She made a motion.
I
It
made a
hasn't been
motion
seconded.
to,
And so,
there was just discussion to replace the 27 feet with 45 feet. And if there's no second, it's dead.
Okay, there is a motion by Commissioner Acuse to replace in the code pursuant to log 29 of the Development Code Update Matrix. Replace 27 feet with 45 feet for the Town Center Daylight Plane. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Perez. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Neese.
Can somebody answer what the code actually says? Because it would be extremely helpful at this point.
I was just. We can have that conversation. Robert's rules.
Right.
I was just reviewing it while you all were talking, and I think my quick interpretation is that it's the 30 feet is measured from the block frontage from the street edge. If that was the question.
From
And
property line?
what?
From property line?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it right of way? Is it curb or is it property line?
I mean, I think that might depend a bit on the configuration of the property.
Yeah.
But what this says in the code, find the place again. Calculations for determining compliance with the average daylight plane standards shall utilize cubic volume and shall consider only the first feet of depth along block frontages. And to me, there's some prior text further up talking about the block frontages along streets. So I think that implies it's the street edge. But I concur that it's not particularly clear.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Neese?
So then it says buildings shall step back at 45-degree angle up to the maximum height limit. But then below, it says that only the first 30 feet of depth shall be counted for the calculation. So then once you get past 30 feet,
It's no longer counted in the calculation.
It's no longer counted in the calculation, but does the building have to continue at 45 degrees? Because below that, it says parts of the building can protrude beyond the daylight plane, which says to me you could go straight up after 30 feet. And there's just no mechanism for calculation at that point. That's how I read the code. If that's the case, we should state that a little bit more clearly, that after 30 feet, you may just go up to the height limit.
So that I think that would be a different amendment than what's proposed in the motion. And if instead you would like to make that clarifying amendment, I think that we can refine the draft in advance of the June 10th meeting to make that more clear. Because it is that specific, the wording there could be clarified a little better to make the code better. And that I think would be consistent with the direction that we've received as well.
May I make a motion to table the motion? Is that what we do?
Are you looking to table it for?
For the next meeting so that Adam can do what he just said?
I would recommend, sorry, I know you asked Deb, but I'm gonna make a recommendation that you could withdraw the motion and then make a new motion that would ask staff to clarify this section of code. And then I can provide the clarifying amendments in the next PCB.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to withdraw the motion and request staff clarify.
We don't, I'm sorry. I echo what Adam has suggested, but we don't need to make a motion to withdraw the motion. I just need for you and Commissioner Perez to withdraw the motion the second.
Okay, I'd like to withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All right, the motion's withdrawn. Is this something that you want to propose as a motion?
If I understand Adam right, I can email you amendment change. It'll be pretty minor, I think.
All right, I think the best way is if you just ask staff to clarify this one section to make amendments, and then I'll work with our other planning staff to get it tightened up.
But you need a motion.
Okay.
But that would just be a motion to ask staff to make those clarifying amendments for the next draft at the next public hearing. The
Okay.
continued public hearing.
So I'd like to make that motion to ask staff to make clarifying amendments
To
the daylight plane.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Neese with a second by Commissioner Perez to clarify daylight planing pursuant to Commissioner Perez's log 29 of the Development Code comment matrix. Any further discussion, or are we ready for a roll call? Please call the roll.
Just one moment while I catch up with the record keeping here. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes. Aye. Vice Chair Gibson,
Nay.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
and Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, can I clarify something before we move
yeah.
on? I just want to make sure that this is reflected in the record. In the materials that have been prepared and provided for this comp plan update, the city has shown the math on how the land capacity increases in phase one will address the housing needs, the affordable housing needs that have been assigned. And that's a key thing to remember as we're working through this, that the recommendation, the sum total of everything in the development code, the comprehensive plan, and the station subarea plan phase one are addressing our affordable housing needs. We've done the math and the study and the land capacity analysis to show that. And so when we're talking about phase one and the impacts, we need to be conscious that there is this larger analysis that's part of the process. And that's a key part of our of how we've arrived at these amendments. So I just wanted to make sure that that was stated in the record and that we got that kind of clarified as we move forward.
Perhaps for the June 10th meeting, you can give us a staff analysis because we haven't had a final vote on that. And if you think it's going to upset the apple cart, put it in there.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're to, 3 amendments by Commissioner Acuse that she would like to retain. If I'm correct, these are the development code, matrix 18, 19, and 23. Is that correct? Or?
It was,
Those are the 3 I have written down.
yes, 18, 19, and 23. I'm going to drop 23 because after that last discussion, I think that's getting into some weeds that we're not prepared to discuss tonight. But this has to do with some, a proposal for the docket that was brought up earlier about people using trees as extremely tall fences. Earlier in this year, that was brought up in the docket by, recommended by a member of the community. But I'm going to drop that for now. And the 2 that I want to talk about, one that I think will get resolved pretty quickly with a yay or a nay, is whether or not we include cannabis dispensary as an allowed use, and that is number 19.
19, you want to make a motion then?
I would like to make a motion to add cannabis dispensary to the table of allowed uses in town center. And it would be not permitted in 8A, conditionally permitted in 8B, and not permitted in town center multifamily 6.
Do we have a second?
And the motion fails.
Okay, there being no second, we're on to your log 18 of the development code comment matrix. Could you make a motion on that?
Yes, I'd like to make an motion to add an amendment that modifies the unit size, the minimum unit size. I've had discussions with some architects and developers, and they agree that we cannot, it would be extremely difficult for a developer to make affordable housing at the size of units and given the cost of our real estate. But I would welcome a friendly amendment from Commissioner Nazima Perez about the actual size of those. My proposal was to modify everyone down by 200 square feet. So 500 becomes 300, 600, 400.
Can you do a motion?
I did.
Did you do a?
I thought I did.
No, what I'd like, we don't use friendly amendments. And
Okay.
so if you want to just state what your motion is and somebody can second it. And if there's, and then somebody else can choose to amend your motion.
So it's a second motion to amend my
Yeah,
motion.
because
Okay.
friendly motions don't exist.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to reduce the square footage by 200 feet in each category of MICC 1906 XXXB4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Perez. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Perez?
Well, if I may, my only motion, well, let's see. The discussion point is having to do with the a studio at 400 square feet. My only recommendation is to take that up by another 100 square feet. I think.
Then you're going to have to make a motion to amend the motion, get a second, and then have a vote on that.
Shall we have some more discussion first?
I'm going to ask staff to, you can discuss the first motion.
All right.
Yeah, if it would help, maybe I should bring up log number 18, so you can see the proposed amendment.
Right.
Thank you.
Just a moment here.
Okay, and I will just say the reason I made this motion is because there are a lot of cities that are allowing kind of efficiency studios. And also because our ADUs are allowed to be 220 square feet. So I don't see why we couldn't have a 300 square foot studio. I've certainly lived in smaller places as a young professional.
And the words are kind of small. Let me get zoomed in here. And just for clarity too, this was categorized as substantive. So making the amendment is would not be counter to the rest of the project. So it's, we're not running into that same problem. Yeah.
All right. Further discussion, Commissioner Neese?
Uh, I think my balance would be lower the studio size, lower the one bedroom size. I think when you get to 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedrooms, those small sizes don't work so well. But that would maybe strike the right balance. Getting small, affordable units would achieve, I think, most of what you're after.
My comment is, I see this as such a substantive change to all the work that's been done before. And the concept that the council has that affordable units should not be materially less or smaller than the market rate units. And I have two qualified architects, each giving me different square footages. I just don't think that this is the time or place for us to make that kind of amendment. And I would bet dinner that it doesn't make it past the council. It's, they're going to say the same thing. Maybe that is the right thing to do. Maybe we go back and we revisit that at some point. And he's going to say, Adam, you're going to have to put together an entire agenda packet because this is not a small change. This isn't like, how tall can your hedge be? And I just don't think that this is the time or place. It's kind of like the other with your daylight planning. I think we're going to get that back. But I can't sit here working off a log stating that we're going to start materially changing the minimum size of the units when the council's already gone over that. So that's why I will vote no on this with the understanding that it might come back. Everyone might sit there and say, yeah, that's, if they're right, yes. Just like the daylight plane. If, that if the planning department gets to the point and they sit there and say, hey, this doesn't, really work, and the developers, they'll come back here and we'll be here and then we'll schedule a hearing on that. Anything further? Okay, want to call the roll?
Wait, I thought we were gonna ask if there was a motion to amend the motion.
Do you want to do
We
a
don't-
motion to amend the motion
Do
to change the proposed?
I can.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to change studios to 300 square feet and 1 bedrooms to 400 square feet, but all other bedroom counts remain as already listed.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Neese to amend the motion by Commissioner Acuse regarding log 18 of the Development Code Planning Matrix, seconded by Commissioner Acuse. We've had some discussion. Does anybody have anything further that they want to talk about? Can you call the roll on Commissioner Neese's motion?
Just a point of clarification, Commissioner Neese, when you state, but keep all the other sizes the same, are you referring to what's already proposed on the matrix or what Commissioner Acuse has proposed in her motion?
The original language.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Nay.
Commissioner Acuse,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes 4-1.
Now we're back to the original motion, but it's the unit size has been amended, based. So should we have a vote on that motion? Please.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Gibson,
Nay.
Commissioner Acuse.
My original one?
No, this is, yes,
As
yours was
amended.
the main motion. We're voting on your main motion.
that has been
As
amended.
amended.
That's been amended.
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Nay.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Thompson. Excuse me, Chair Thompson.
Nay.
Okay, motion fails 3-2.
All right. So am I correct that none of those substantive motions made it in, and now we are to the substantive motions that staff does not recommend because they do think it could affect compliance?
Correct. And correct. And for those, no additional action is necessary. The planning commission doesn't need to take an action on those proposed amendments.
Okay.
Chair, there was one, I misunderstood your initial. I did have one that I wanted to propose.
Of,
Substantive, staff recommended.
is it, the ones that staff is stating that is, they are not recommending?
Is that they are recommending.
They are recommending. Okay, I guess there was one other. You said none, but you have one.
Yes, it's at the station area, plan,
Okay, stationary subplan log.
number 4. Log.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I move to incorporate station area log number 4 per the staff recommendation language.
All right, does everybody have that? Do I have a second? I'll second that. So there's a motion by Vice Chair Gibson to adopt the amendment of the stationary planning commission comment matrix number 4 using staff language. And this says that adopt development and design standards during phase 2 to increase compatibility in transition areas where high density residential uses are allowed adjacent to lower density neighborhoods. These standards should include height steps downs, protection of view, light, and privacy, preservation of tree canopy and natural buffers, and other compatible considerations. Any discussion? Start with you, Vice Chair Gibson. It's your motion.
Yeah, this was something that came up during one of the council meetings, and one of the council members had concerns about just potentially a large building next to a single family home and how that could be jarring and so on. And so this is encouraging or adding a policy to the station area plan to assess and transition the design standards as it tapers from a high density to a kind of single family use. I'll also note that this specifically applies to the phase 2 portion of the sub-area plan that is outside the town center and would affect single family rezoning of single family or whatever is included in that phase 2 at that time. So it doesn't affect any of the zoning or the regulation amendments that are getting discussed tonight.
Right. Commissioner Hughes, you have.
Yeah, just a point of clarification there. So what you're suggesting is studying something in the single family zones as part of phase 2. You're not talking about changing anything in town center.
I guess. Ready to go around, Rob. I'm going to respond to that.
Yes, that is correct. Commissioner Perez?
No questions.
Commissioner Neese?
Questions?
Yes, considering that this would not in any way affect the compliance, that staff believes that phase 1 alone will meet our adequacy and provision requirements. And that this will probably be quite a discussion in phase 2 when we do the outreach. I think it's a good thing to add to it. I don't think that the council would see this coming back as a substantive change. I assume, I haven't seen her, so I'm assuming that outside counsel doesn't, have any concerns with that. So I'll be voting yes. Anything else? All right, please call the roll.
Sorry, point of clarification.
Oh.
Are we voting on the staff alternative? or-
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that was my motion to
Sorry.
use the staff recommended alternative.
Yes, please call the roll.
Thank you. Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes. Aye. Commissioner Neese
Aye.
and Vice Chair Gibson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now we are to the substantive that the staff not recommending, kind of again like the other ones. My suggestion is that if a commissioner has one that they feel very strongly about, let's add that and have a discussion on it. Rather than I think it's too hard to do a motion that say, do we accept all of them or not, or accept none of them? I personally, with this, I could see a motion just saying, hey, we're not going to do any substantive motions that staff is recommending against. But also, if there's something in here that, really you feel strongly about, let's add that. Commissioner Perez.
No additions.
Commissioner Acuse. Vice Chair. Well, I don't have any either. There's one, but we can resolve that later. So what that does is take us through the motions, right?
It does, yeah. I have a couple more slides I'd like to share before, just to go over kind of where we're going next.
Okay.
Particularly for those folks that stuck through the deliberations, we keep in mind where we're heading here. So let me share my screen here.
And maybe explain once again to the people here, why we're here and how we're here and the very little discretion that we have.
Yes. So I just wanted to share this slide again. This is where you can find those additional documents that have fed into this kind of mammoth body of work that's before the Planning Commission. The project Let's Talk page has all of the relevant studies and agenda bills and presentation materials all posted on that Let's Talk. There's also some FAQs on there with more information about step housing. And then every PCB that comes before the Planning Commission has the background that lists all of the previous meetings that these matters have been discussed. So if you're looking for more, if you want to read more, there is a lot more.
Slide deck and they
And here we are. We are back from technical difficulties. Let me share my screen again. I had one more slide. I just wanted to drive this home. So for the
Apologies, everyone. We're subject to technology still.
And we're back from another round of technical difficulties, but I think I'm not going to share my screen because that seems to be the catalyst here. But again, so next Wednesday, June 10th, the Planning Commission public hearing will be continued to that date, at which point they would make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will then be briefed on that recommendation, or the recommendation will be delivered to the City Council on June 16th. And then the first hearing of the first reading of ordinances to adopt these amendments would be with the City Council. That's planned for their meeting on July 8th. And that should get us to our July 31st compliance window. There will be another staff report that's issued on this matter ahead of that June 10th public hearing. And that'll include the updated language so you can see where we've clarified that average daylight plane standard. It will also include kind of that, where we plan to include that updated draft of the documents.
One other thing I wanted to mention about that was one of the written comments we received this week pointed out that the appendices were not included in the packet this week. Those are the technical analyses, like the land capacity analysis that we were discussing earlier. We'll be adding those to the packet for next week as well. So that they've been available for public review for the last few weeks on the Let's Talk page, but we want to make sure they're included in the public record as part of the materials the commission's considering.
Just one point of housekeeping for my records. I show that the one substantive amendment that the Planning Commission adopted and recommends is Vice Chair Gibson's sub-area station log 4 using staff language. I didn't see any others pass, did they?
No, that's the only one that I tracked as being incorporated.
All right. So there won't be any further comments or matrix for next week, will there?
Correct. No additional, unless additional public comments are submitted, and those will be forwarded to the Planning Commission as the other written public comments were. Yeah.
All right. Is there a staff report other than what Adam has just given us?
Just really quick, I wanted to go over the upcoming meeting dates because they're. Oh, sorry. Turning my camera on, one moment. Hopefully that doesn't break anything. Okay, so as Adam said, the next meeting is next Wednesday, June 10th. The next scheduled meeting after that is July 8th. The regular meeting dates of June 24th and July 22nd have been canceled. And we do not normally hold a meeting in August for the city's summer recess. So as of now, we just have 2 meetings remaining this summer, and then the commission will meet again in September.
Yes.
I will be out of the country on July 8th. So
Thanks for
planned
letting us know.
absence.
I may be too. I'm scheduled to be in London.
Okay, well, maybe we'll send an email around to check on availability to make sure that we have a quorum, because that is intended to be a public hearing. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Perez? No?
Okay, question for Allison. Schedule wise,
given that we're not doing a lot of debating next time, is it possible or is it too late with the public process that we could actually hold our vote after the public hearing at the next meeting?
The plan is that the recommendation will be completed at the next meeting on June 10th. So we'll finish the public hearing and then the commission will finalize its deliberations and vote.
Okay, so the July 8th would be a new topic.
It's a new topic.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Done? Anything?
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was certainly productive. We got through a lot of material. Well done. The next meeting is a special meeting scheduled, as you heard, for Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. here, wherein the public hearing will be continued. There will be no other business to come before the Planning Commission. The time is now 8:17 p.m. and the meeting is concluded. As a reminder to commissioners, please stay seated until city staff has terminated the broadcast. Thank you.